countdown, we have Angela Anaconda. Now, this was a Canadian-based cartoon, so I'm not sure if anyone outside of Canada got to experience this show. Lucky you if you didn't. But basically, the show's style is very creepy. It's like mixing real-life faces into the cartoon world. The human faces and bodies are all gray, but everything else is in color. So many people have commented on the show's style saying it creeped them out or gave them nightmares. And I can see why. Just the way that the characters move their lips and eyes are just, it's so creepy. And the opening theme song does not help their case. During this song, you see Angela sabotaging her rival and ends up dropping a heavy stage curtain on her. Angela is not a nice girl. She definitely has a dark side. And in our 9th spot, we have Miss Spider's Sunny Patch Friends. Oh, based on the title, it sounds like it should be like a pretty, sweet, innocent cartoon, right? Well, let's look at the characters in the show. You have Bounce, this blue character with a massive smile and orange eyes with orange eyelashes. Then you have Dragon, a dragonfly with long, sharp eyelashes and blue eyes. Honestly, just, you gotta look at their pictures. They're pretty terrifying. But the worst character would have to be Spiderus, a white spider with a weird human head and red lips. Then you have his wife that literally looks like the devil. Like, what's with these characters? They're all terrifying looking. Moving on to number 8, we have Real Monsters. Okay, I never watched this show as a kid, and I'm happy I didn't. You'll understand in a second. So this show is about a group of monsters in training. Ickis, Oblina, and Crumb are all monsters who attend a school to learn how to frighten humans. Kind of sounds like Monsters University and Monsters Inc. once I think about it. Now let's take a look at the design of these monsters. They are so creepy and you cannot convince me otherwise. So let's start with Ickis. Probably the least scary looking one. Ickis is like a little gremlin with a wide Cheshire cat smile. But his eyes turn red and his teeth turn sharp when he scares people. Then we have Oblina. She's like an evil black and white candy cane looking creature. But take a look at her beady little glowing green eyes and huge lips and mouth. Oblina is like a serpent type creature that can contort her body. She can use her teeth, lips, and tongue to scare people. Then you have the scariest one of all, Crumb. This naked looking monster. He literally has detached eyes, so he's always stuck holding them up in the air. And he's covered in hair and it just looks super disturbing. His scare tactic is to use his grossness to frighten humans. Well, they succeeded with that. So yeah, the creatures alone make this show terrifying. I would be shocked if it left a lot of kids scarred. In our 7th spot, we have The Real Ghostbusters. Yes, our classic movie had a cartoon as well. This was a 1986 show filled with terrifying monsters. If this show was still around today, you know there would be tons of moms complaining about it, saying it's not appropriate for the kids, blah blah. Okay, Karen. So let's talk about some of these creepy monsters. So up first we have Akira. This is the demon version of a Mesopotamian goddess of disease and death. She basically wants to create chaos through disease. Her appearance is disgusting with a shriveled green zombie-looking face with worm-type creatures for hands. Each worm has its own face with a tongue with sharp spikes on it. Akira would then infect other individuals, which causes them to get big boils on them. These boils were in fact her offspring. Then you have Vathek and his pals. Vathek is a big blob-type butcher creature with a buzzsaw in his head. His friend Grizzle is shown with his mouth sewn shut and dentist drills for hands. And then you have Corpsicle, a big blob with no face and just hands for eyes. Moving on to number 6, we have Tales from the Crypt Keeper. I'm sure all of you 90s kids remember this show. I certainly do. Alright, so the Crypt Keeper plays the host of the show who introduces what each episode is going to be about. The series then goes on and talks about classic legends like stories of vampires, zombies, and werewolves. But a lot of the episodes have scary monsters that scare the human characters. Let's talk about the 2 most frightening episodes in my opinion. Starting off, we have the episode titled The Weeping Woman, where Camille and Mildred visit a haunted Victorian mansion. At night, they are woken up by creepy moaning and objects flying around. That's when they see the Weeping Woman, an old eyeless and toothless woman with scraggly gray hair and long black nails. The second night, the woman looks even more terrifying with red glowing eyes. She ends up chasing the girls around the house. Not to mention chasing one of the girls to the top of the roof where she almost gets pushed off to death. Then you have the other episode titled Sharon Share-alike. This is an episode about a girl named Shauna who refuses to share her toys with her little sister Katie. As a result, she hides one of her old toy dolls in the vent so her sister can't play with it. Then the doll ends up coming alive and haunting her. The episode is really creepy, with the doll coming alive and saying things like, "You're not nice, I don't like you." The doll ends up chasing her all over the house, giggling and chanting her name. Move over, Annabelle, okay? We got a more terrifying doll here. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Scooby-Doo, my favorite cartoon of all time. But I had to put it on the list just because some episodes actually gave me the creeps. So I'm sure we all know about Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and of course Scooby-Dooby-Doo, my favorite group of meddling kids that solve mysteries. Some of the villains are pretty creepy. Like the episode titled Vampire Bats and Scary Cats, where the team visits Daphne's friend Lisa and they encounter a vampire. The vampire ends up turning Lisa into one as well. When this happens, she turns and looks directly into the camera and growls. Just the image of her scary vampire face is just ingrained in my mind forever. Then you have the episode with the ghost clown, who, again, looks very creepy, and hypnotizes Shaggy, Scooby, and Daphne to all do dangerous circus acts. I didn't think that they could make clowns any scarier until this one came along and manipulates and hypnotizes people. How about the episode with the phantom green ghosts and their terrifying cackly laugh? Later on in the episode, the crew finds 5 coffins, with one shaped like a dog. When they open them, it reveals some of the characters unconscious in there. I think the scariest thing is how whenever they make a ghost or monster appear, it's always like a POV zoom effect style. So it shows the monster closing in on you as they directly stare right at you. And lastly, we have the episode where the gang visits a sanatorium with a crazed doctor character with green glowing eyes. In the episode, you can literally see dead bodies under a sheet being brought in and out. Although they weren't real bodies in the end, it's still not kid-friendly. And our 4th spot, we have Courage the Cowardly Dog. Yes, I know I've talked about Courage so much on this channel, but it's freaking creepy. One of the episodes that scared me as a kid was the one titled King Ramses' Curse. That's right, the Egyptian pharaoh makes an appearance in this episode. So Eustace ends up finding and keeping an ancient Egyptian slab. As a result, he's visited by King Ramses. King Ramses just appears outside their home and he's swaying back and forth. He's like, "Return the slab." Okay, now it's funny, but back when I was a kid, it was terrifying. That alone could just send shivers down your spine. Then you have the episode Freaky Fred, where Mariel's cousin Fred comes into town to visit. Fred looks insane with his creepy wide-mouthed smile and slanted eyebrows. What's even worse is that he has creepy inner dialogue that only the audience can hear. And it's entirely in rhymes. Let's not forget about the episode where Muriel gets possessed. Or how about the episode where that glowing white human face visits their home? All are perfect examples of how disturbing that show really was. But it's also a really good show, can't lie. In our 3rd spot, we have Martin Mystery. Another one of my favorite cartoons as a child, although certain episodes definitely scared me. So this show surrounds Martin Mystery and Diana Lombard, 2 16-year-old step-siblings that work for an organization referred to as the Center. Basically, their job is to solve cases and protect people from supernatural threats. There are multiple episodes that are completely messed up. The one I remember giving me nightmares when I was younger is the episode titled Revenge of the Doppelganger. Basically, in this episode, women are being attacked by some sort of electrical shadow that completely erases their face. In the episode, this creature attacks multiple women that all have similar features and steals their faces, leaving them looking like creepy mannequins. Or how about the episode The Nightmare of the Coven, where 3 students used a book of spells and released this witch demon thing. The witch ends up turning more of the female students into witches. They all look terrifying with their sharp teeth and green skin. And then we have the episode The Body Swappers, which is a reference to the movie The Thing. Basically, this organism creature goes around using humans as its hosts. In the episode, whoever the organism gets to turns them into big monsters with sharp teeth and long tentacles. And there are plenty of other horrifying creatures seen throughout the series that will definitely give you the creeps. In our 2nd spot, we have SpongeBob. Yes, I know you wouldn't think that this show would be on the list since it's about a cheerful little sponge, but there are numerous episodes that are quite scary. Let's start off with the episode where SpongeBob thinks he kills the health inspector, and then him and Mr. Krabs literally have to dispose of his body, which goes terribly wrong, and they just keep moving and hiding the body so that the cops don't catch them. Don't worry, turns out he wasn't dead, but it's still pretty terrifying. Or Or how about the hash-slinging slasher episode? When SpongeBob and Squidward work the night shift and believe they are visited by a dead fry cook with a rusty spatula as a hand. Or the episode where SpongeBob gets injected by snail plasma and slowly turns into this creepy looking snail. There are so many more episodes that I can name, like when SpongeBob gets a splinter and turns into this huge weeping red sword. The list goes on and on. The Hooky episode, oh my gosh. And in our number one spot, we have the show Grisly Tales for Gruesome Kids. This show is about terrible kids receiving cruel and gruesome punishments for their behavior. Honestly, it's a good way to scare your kids into behaving nicely. In one episode titled Death by Chocolate, it surrounds this greedy girl who we see indulging in tons of chocolate. She's also quite rude to her sister, often calling her a slave. Well, she gets instant karma as a fly ends up laying an egg in her chocolate bunny. She ends up eating a maggot, and as a result, she turns into a giant fly, in which her sister kills, and then chocolate just spews everywhere. Like, that's terrifying. She literally killed her sister. Next, we have the episode The Spaghetti Man. Basically, it's about a bunch of picky eaters who then get captured by the Spaghetti Man. The Spaghetti Man then turns the kids into spaghetti and eats them for dinner. At the end of the episode, it's implied that a family ate their own son for dinner since he got turned into lasagna noodles. And then they're shown eating the lasagna. Like, is that even considered cannibalism? I don't even know. Starting off this countdown, we have Numberjacks. You all kept mentioning this one in the comments in my last video. Boy, do I regret looking it up. So Numberjacks is a British 3D animated children's show. It's aimed towards 2 to 5-year-olds. And it's about a bunch of numbers that solve problems and go on adventures. Pretty educational and harmless, right? Well, yeah, except for the fact that the characters are really, really creepy. The Numberjacks alone will give you nightmares with their beady little eyes. But what's even more terrifying are the villains of the show, which they are referred to as the meanies. So first up, we have Spooky Spoon, which lives up to its name. Then you have the Shape Japer, which is this creepy purple ball with a permanent angry face plastered on it. It has this evil grin with sharp teeth. Then you have the Puzzler, which, okay, he isn't that bad, but he's a floating human head. And lastly, you have the Problem Blob, which is like a slime monster. And he has one eye, but it's located in his mouth, and it comes out on his long tongue. Creepy. In our ninth spot, we have Long Ago and Far Away. This show is basically a collection of stories for children. The show has a human narrator, but the stories themselves are animated. Each episode covers a different story. Some of the stories are quite messed up. Let's look at the one titled Rarge. In this episode, we learn about a world with strange-looking citizens, super intelligent babies, and a mayor with arms growing out of his head. In this episode, these weird babies learn that they are only alive in someone's dream. So they kidnap him and build a bridge so that they can cross over into the real world. The episode ends with the babies trapping the man in his own dreams forever. It's quite eerie and messed up. In our eighth spot, we have Happy Tree Friends. Okay. Yes, I know, the show is technically not made for young kids, but I know a lot of kids that watch this show. Now, don't be fooled by the name of the show, it's clearly not bright and cheery. The characters are pretty cute and colorful, so you would think it's just a normal kids show. No. The whole show is about woodland creatures that get into very disturbing and graphic situations. In each episode, the characters get severely injured or killed. It's just filled with gore and violence. For example, you see the characters getting hit and killed by a truck, being chopped in half by a ceiling fan, being burnt alive, decapitated by elevator doors, and sawed in half. The list goes on and on. So yeah, it's designed to be a dark comedy, but it's more creepy than funny. Moving on to number 7, we have Freaky Stories. This is a Canadian animated show that is a collection of urban legends and other scary stories. It's hosted by 2 animatronic puppets, Cockroach and a Maggot. But that's not the creepy part. The show has pretty creepy stories. One of them is about a man who spends the night at a motel. When he lays down on his mattress, he feels like a bunch of tiny little fingers were massaging his body. I mean, that's not so bad, getting a little free massage. But when he ripped open the mattress, he found that it was filled with hundreds of cockroaches. Then there's another episode that talks about a vain young woman that refused to wash her hair because she didn't want to ruin her hairdo. Her hair was up in like a beehive type style, and she wanted to keep it perfectly in place. Then, eventually, she mysteriously passed away. Upon investigating her death, it was said that a spider was living in her hair, hatched eggs, and then she died from a bunch of spider bites. And then there are just countless other creepy stories that are featured in this show. In our sixth spot, we have Adventure Time. Although the show itself isn't considered dark, there are some underlying dark themes and some episodes that are pretty creepy. One episode in particular, you see the Ice King cut body parts off of princesses, and then he sews them back together to form one princess, like Frankenstein. Or the episode with the blank-eyed girls. They are so creepy. They just stand there and stare at people for no reason. They are all identical with long black hair and all black, soulless eyes. The show has other creepy moments like the episode titled A Glitch is a Glitch, where Finn and Jake receive a floppy disk. On the disc is a video of a girl gagging herself with her own hair. You got other creepy characters like the Guardian Angel that seems all innocent and saves Finn's life, and then it's revealed that she's this hideous monster with wrinkly green skin, nasty teeth, and bulging eyeballs. One episode in particular though that made a lot of people uncomfortable is the one titled No One Can Hear You. If you've seen this episode, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. The whole episode makes you feel really uneasy, and then the whole... Only the ones that watch that episode will understand what I'm referring to. We're now at our fifth and halfway mark with Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy is another classic cartoon. This time, this show is known to be more dark and twisted. In the episode titled Stimpy's Fan Club, Ren and Stimpy receive a bunch of fan mail, however, it's all for Stimpy and none for Ren. That night, Ren goes completely insane from the jealousy. He stays awake talking to himself, and he feels guilty for writing letters back insulting the fans. The episode continues with him planning to murder Stimpy in his sleep by snapping his neck. His brain then begins to sting and swell before he is engulfed by the flames of hell. In another episode titled Rubber Nipple Salesman, Ren and Stimpy own a rubber nipple business and go door to door to sell their product. They knock on the door to one house and a horse answers the door. This horse is clearly a deranged killer. He ends up looking at them and saying, "Maybe I should make another mistake. Maybe 2 more." Then he pulls out a walrus and asks if they have any rubber walrus protectors. The walrus begs them to call the police. Okay, it's actually pretty hilarious, but it's also very, very creepy. In our fourth spot, we have The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. This show is pretty funny, not gonna lie, but it's also filled with moments that will make you feel pretty uncomfortable. For starters, they have countless creepy characters like the Candy Wife that looks like a disturbing rag doll, or Teehee Tummy Tums and his family. They all look like they belong to the movie The Orphanage since they all wear a sack over their face. Now, let's look at some of the creepy episodes. You got the episode titled Knuckles is a Dirty Rat, where you see the very detailed and gross plague-infested citizens. Or the episode Who Let the Cat Out of the Old Bag's House, where you see one of her cats has empty eye sockets and sharp teeth. And we see an extreme close-up of this face multiple times. And lastly, in the episode titled Teehee Tummy Tums, Flapjack has a nightmare about the Comb King. It's weird because the Comb King is stop-motion animated, so that alone is pretty jarring. But in the episode, he gives Flapjack a special comb, then says in a menacing voice, "You'll need it to get the bugs out of your hair." Then we see bugs crawling all over his face while he panics. The Comb King laughs evilly, and we see that he has sharp, comb-like teeth. Making our way down the list at number 3, we have What a Cartoon. This is an American show composed of a variety of animated shorts. Let's look at the one titled Kitchen Casanova. In this episode, a man is preparing a dinner for his date. Seems pretty innocent, but that's until he reveals what he actually made for his date. Quite disturbing. Basically, he was going to serve her a rolled up tongue with an eyeball, bloody bones, and a severed human foot. It's quite a disturbing image. And a bunch of other episodes have dark plots and images like this one. This show scared a lot of kids and outraged numerous parents. In our second spot, we have Over the Garden Wall. I am so glad that I found this show. It's pretty good. So this show is about 2 half-brothers that are trying to find their way home as they're wandering through a forest. Along their way, they encounter a variety of creepy creatures. First, we have the Beast, who is the main antagonist in the series. If you think about it, he's a metaphor for lost souls, suicide, and hopelessness. He is a tall, humanoid creature with antlers. In the light, we see that his body is made out of elderwood with twisted, distorted faces all over his body. And guess what? You know how elderwood is made? Basically, it's made from people who have gotten lost in the forest and then they just gave up. Roots start growing from their bodies until they turn into a tree with a horrified look on their face. Then they are cut down and turned into oil to fuel the beast's lanterns. That's pretty dark. And lastly, you have the character Lorna. Spoiler alert. It's revealed that she's possessed with a cannibalistic demon. And in our number 1 spot, we have Invader Zim. This show is basically about the alien Zim that gets tricked into coming down to Earth, where he now resides, disguising himself as a human child. Now, there are numerous episodes that are very dark and disturbing. In the episode titled Bestest Friend, Zim gives a kid a gift, and inside is a robotic arm that comes out and literally gouges out the kid's eyeballs. Then, it replaces them with robotic eyes. While his eyes are being removed, you can hear him screaming in pain. But the most disturbing episode would have to be the one titled Dark Harvest, which is the 4th episode in season 1. In this episode, Zim gets sent down to the nurse's office. Then Dib says that when he gets examined by the nurse, she will discover that he has no human organs. This will reveal his alien identity. So, how does Zim go about solving this problem? He goes around stealing organs from kids. Like, he literally rips their organs and replaces it with just random items. This makes all the kids start to become sick and they start acting all funny. Zim then puts the organs in himself so he appears human. But he ends up turning into this huge blob of just stolen organs. It's really gross. In fact, he throws up someone's intestines and then he just slurps them back in as if it's spaghetti. It's really disturbing. Starting off this countdown, we have Dexter's Lab. This show is about a child genius who creates inventions in his secret laboratory. In one episode titled Got Your Goat, Dexter and Dee Dee travel to South America to look for the chupacabra that escaped from his lab. In one scene, we see them explore a cave when they find a backpack. Inside the backpack were binoculars covered in fresh, dripping blood and a human skull. So basically, Dexter's creation killed someone. But they played the scene off as just a joke. Then in the episode titled Dee Dee's Room, you see a zombified Dexter with pulsating veins all over his face. It's quite a creepy image. And lastly, you have the episode titled Sore Eyes. In this episode, Dexter gets laser eye surgery, but it goes horribly right. He can now see every minute detail, like the bacteria and bugs that infest our food. In our 9th spot, we have Tom and Jerry. I'm sure you all remember this classic show involving Tom the house cat and Jerry the cute little mouse. Now, you wouldn't regard this show as scary. However, I searched online and there have been multiple people that have been horrified by certain episodes. For starters, in the episode titled Down and Outing, High Stakes and Sorry Safari, Tom's owner is very loud and short-tempered. He constantly beats Tom and enjoys doing so as he always has this creepy grin on his face. Then in the episode titled Heavenly Puss, Tom literally gets sent to hell. That episode in particular creeped out The Simpsons creator Matt Groening. He said that it's one of the darkest things he has seen. And that's coming from The Simpsons creator, and The Simpsons has some really messed up stuff happen. Then you have the episode titled Blue Cat Blues, where depressed Tom and Jerry sit on the train tracks right as a train is coming. Tom's face is pretty disturbing looking, with his eyeballs having bulging, prominent veins. And lastly, in the episode titled The Two Mouseketeers, Tom gets guillotined at the end of the episode. In our 8th spot, we have The Creepy Crawlers. This is a 1994 show that follows a kid named Chris Carter who worked in a magic shop. In the show, he designed a machine called the Magic Maker. One night, the machine ended up creating 3 weird mutant bug-type creatures. These creatures, alongside Chris, fight the evil characters. Now, the evil characters are pretty creepy, not gonna lie. First off, we have Spooky Goopy, who is a green skeletal monster with handcuffs for hands. I don't know how that works, like, it seems useless. How could you, like, pick things up? I don't know. Then you have Shock-a-Roach, which is this nasty cockroach-like monster that can unleash swarms of cockroaches. You have Quirminator, which is a worm-type creature that has a mace at the end of its tail. And even Spider Patrol, a brown-haired, creepy humanoid spider monster. Honestly, they don't make characters like that anymore. Moving on to number 7, we have the Inhumanoids. This is a 1986 show about human scientists that battle a bunch of subterranean monsters known as the Inhumanoids. This show is also filled with very creepy, evil characters. Some of the characters include Decompose, a giant dude that has control over the dead. He is seen with a giant cage built into his stomach that's often spewing blood. He can also turn living things into zombie monsters by just touching them. Then you have Tendril, basically a green giant dude that can regenerate his long tentacle-like arms and legs. And then you have the Redwoods character that are creepy red trees with glowing eyes that look like they came out of Evil Dead. In our 6th spot, we have Pinky and the Brain. Again, I'm sure most of you have at least heard of this show. It's basically about an evil genius mouse and his not-so-intelligent sidekick. Every night they try to conquer the world. Now, there are several disturbing episodes. One episode I want to talk about is the first episode from season 4 titled Brainwashed, Brain Go Away. This episode features a very creepy looking evil clown. Basically in the episode, the clown makes these balloon animals that pop and release a gas that knocks Pinky and the Brain out. The Brain then has super weird dreams. Everything is in black and white and looks and sounds distorted. It's a mind trip. At one point, he holds onto a globe in his hands and then just turns into black goo and melts away. And of course, throughout many of the episodes, you see Brain wanting to hurt his dumb sidekick. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Zombiedom. This 2015 show follows a bunch of zombie kids that gather the streets at night. These zombies aren't the brightest and get themselves into a bunch of silly situations. Now, first off, there's an episode called All I See Is Hannah, where a character finds a strange-looking mushroom on the ground and eats it. From there, he goes on a trip and his eyes become swirly and purple. So basically, he was on drugs. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is the character Hannah. Hannah is the sole human survivor of the zombie virus. Which is sad because she's the only kid left and she got no family. But the truly terrifying thing about her is her appearance. In the first couple of seasons, she had a big round face with 2 unproportionally small, all black, beady little eyes. She also has a huge gummy smile with only 1 tooth just hanging out. I mean, her proportions are just all wrong. Tell me how, out of all the zombies and creatures in the show, the dang human looks the scariest. Coming in at number 4, we have The Magic School Bus. What a great educational show filled with moments of adult humor. Again, another show you wouldn't consider terrifying, but let me prove you wrong. So in one of the episodes, Arnold literally commits suicide. In this episode, Miss Frizzle takes her class to space. They're on Pluto and Arnold is having an argument with his cousin Janet. She basically wants to stay on Pluto, but he says this will happen if she stays on Pluto. He then takes off his helmet and freezes immediately. Janet then carries his dead frozen body back to the school bus. Of course, he didn't actually die, he was alive in the next episode. But he literally ended his life to prove a point. Then there are other weird things that happen, like when they go inside of Ralphie through his nasty, pussy, bloody scab, and then they all get attacked by his cells and the bacteria. Or when Miss Frizzle takes the kids to learn about the weather and Ralphie opens up the school bus when they're flying in the air and they all turn into weird, flat humans, like super thin, paper thin humans. They just fly through the sky. In our 3rd spot, we have The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Y'all really wanted this show to be featured on my next countdown, so here you have it. This show features Billy and Mandy and their new BFF, the Grim Reaper. Basically, they won a limbo contest and the Grim Reaper is forced to be their friend, go on adventures with them, and do chores for them, and so on. Now, this show is known to be a dark comedy. Nonetheless, there are still some creepy moments in the show. In season 2, there's this creepy scene involving Jeff the Spider where he literally is snapping his sharp teeth and keeps saying, "Love me, Dad, love me now." It's really creepy. In the episode titled Nursery Crimes, Billy is cast as Humpty Dumpty, but he falls to his death, shatters, and his remains are eaten by all the king's horses and men and villagers for days. In the same episode, a creepy Pinocchio tries to eat Billy's flesh. And lastly, in the episode titled Attack of the Clowns, Grimm tries to bring to life a creepy clown head to try and get Billy over his fear of clowns. Well, this creepy clown comes to life and drags itself along the floor and then tries to devour them. Moving on to number 2, we have Jimmy Neutron. Wow, who else remembers this show? That is a throwback. Also, who remembers that weird Fairly Odd Parents and Jimmy Neutron crossover that they did? It was just so random. But anyways, this is another show that seems harmless and not scary, but upon analyzing it, you notice how dark it truly is. In one episode, Jimmy duplicates his friends and family, but they turn evil. His dad is the creepiest as he sadistically laughs while he recounts how he killed and mounted ducks all over his wall after they begged for mercy. In the episode titled One of Us, Jimmy is alone while his best friends turn into mindless zombies. In the episode Who's Your Mommy, Carl gets impregnated by a single alien egg. Creepy. And lastly, there's one episode where Jimmy's dad buys a puppet named Flippy to practice ventriloquism with. Jimmy ends up putting a computer chip in Flippy's head to enhance Hugh's brain so he will tell better jokes. But it ends up just sucking all the life out of him so that Flippy becomes real and his dad is like lifeless. And he even planned to kill his dad by chucking his body off a cliff so that he would never be able to get his brain back. That's really dark. And in our number one spot, we have Gravity Falls. Again, you guys really wanted me to feature this on my countdown list. This show is about two twin siblings, Dipper and Maybelle Pines. They visit their great uncle Stan, who runs a shop in Gravity Falls, for their summer. Although they think that their summer is going to be boring, it turns out to be quite the opposite. Now, there are countless dark and creepy episodes and characters. First off, there have been times where both Dipper and Maybelle get possessed, and it's quite creepy. Then you have villains like the submarine trickster. Basically, this dude eats kids if they don't do as he says. On top of his already creepy appearance, he can shapeshift and grow extra arms and legs and can change size. Then you got other characters like the Hide Behind that literally reminds me of my best friend, Siren Head. He's a tall, slender black humanoid creature with glowing yellow eyes. He's got incredibly long limbs. And even the octopus with one eye that can turn its eye into a mouth with sharp teeth. Then you got the episode titled Northwest Mystery Mansion, where you see taxidermy animals on the wall start talking and bleeding through their eye sockets and mouth. Scary. Great show though.